On this episode of One on One, we're going to have Dr. Mark Williams. Of course, he is the superintendent for the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux, the Catholic school system, and he comes by way of New Orleans. So we're going to learn a little bit about our superintendent. He's a very colorful man. I'm sure you'll see that during the interview. So we'll take a short break. When we come back, Dr. Mark Williams.
One on One is brought to you by the Law Office of Waits and Downer.
So, Mark Williams comes to Terrebonne Parish. Really, I should say Terrebonne Lafou St. Mary. Diocese has been around since Bishop Boudreaux. People get set in their ways. People who've been around for a long time want to do things their way. Here's a new superintendent coming in with new ideas. How do you balance that?
I work under the direction of Father P.J. Madden and Mr. Bill Barbera, first and foremost. They, pretty much say, here's the road. Along that road, I work with a number of presidents and principals. I believe in communication first. But before we communicate, we'll assess. Let's take a look at what has to be done. So if you speak to any president and principal, whether it's here in Houma, whether it's in Thibodaux, or whether it's out at Central Catholic, where I spent half a day yesterday, I believe that they will all tell you that I'm thorough and I make decisions collaboratively. I am not a top-down type of person. I like to put everybody around the table. Let's identify the challenge and let's solve it together. Even if there's disagreement, we might walk out of there a little dirty. But at the end of the day, we're gonna have the best decision made for the children. And so far, I think it has gone very well. We are very blessed here. We have high caliber of school leaders. What a blessing for me to come here. New Orleans, we had high caliber of school leaders too, but these school leaders here could compete anywhere. They're excellent, and we are so blessed to have them.
I sort of think of the word flexible as you're answering this question, because Father P.J. Madden has been thrust into, let's just say, the bishop's role. Although they don't call him bishop, it's the bishop's role. I guess out of being fair, we should be able to call him bishop, but we can't. All right, so eventually, we're going to have a new bishop. That new bishop may come in and go, 180 degrees, you got to be flexible, don't you?
We do. We have to be flexible. A bishop becomes a bishop by hard work and dedication to the church. A bishop becomes a bishop on merit, and he becomes the shepherd of the diocese based on extraordinary performance, extraordinary formation, and extraordinary accomplishments in his past. I really believe, from having worked with different bishops and Father PJ as well, that we're going to get an extraordinary bishop. And I will serve the bishop faithfully in whatever and however he wants the schools to move forward.
How is it working with Father PJ, who was put into this situation, but such a colorful person? He's going to be in my one-on-one coming up soon, and but knows when to hit the switch and be straight line, but such a colorful person.
I love working with him. And when I first came here, I asked him if he would just give me 30 minutes every 2 weeks, because he's really busy, as you might expect. I mean, he works 6 a.m. till 9 every day. When we're all off on Sunday, that's the day he works the most. So just so that way I can keep him abreast of anything that's going on in the schools. I can ask him how he would like me to proceed with difficult situations, and I don't want him to ever feel like he doesn't know what's going on. I send a newsletter to all of our pastors, principals, presidents, secretaries in the school, and also our Cognia accreditation committee that's taking place right now, about 30 people across the diocese, on the 15th and the 30th. Just, that keeps us all on the same line of communication. I always make sure I ask him if there is something that he wants to see in there, if he wants to have any communication, if he wants to give me direction. And then I always ask him for feedback once we publish it and send it out.
You seem like you're a good facilitator. But in facilitating, you mentioned boards. And I know some of the people on your boards. They're dear friends of mine, but they're A personalities, bulldogs. They want it done, they want it done, they want it done. You got to deal with all these at one time.
Yeah.
How do you facilitate?
I love working with boards. I was fortunate when I was principal at Archbishop Shaw High School. I was so blessed to have a wonderful board. And yes, I had people who did not vote for my budgets at times, and the meeting before the meeting maybe didn't always go well. So I am experienced, at that. At the end of the day, the most important thing, in my opinion, with boards, especially if you have a board with type A's, is this, that we organize ourselves into groups on the basis of willing to serve. We identify one or two challenges for each one of those groups, and we say, let's solve that challenge. And then when we meet, we give a report on where we are with solving that challenge. And when we solve those challenges, we move on to the next one. And what I mean for committees, a mission committee, maybe a finance committee, maybe a facilities committee, maybe a marketing and advancement committee. Where do you want to serve? Willingness to serve is the most important thing. We don't want to put someone on a committee they don't want to serve. But if everybody's willing to serve on a committee of their choice, and the superintendent, in collaboration with the bishop and Mr. Barbera, say, hey, these are challenges. Well, we got A-type people to help us out. It's such a blessing. And so that's how I approach it. And, our board is, while we don't have a bishop, is not officially convening, but our board chair is Mr. Steve Crispino. Excellent.
Good guy.
Excellent guy. And I probably text him more than I know he's a businessman. I hate to take his time, but I do often text Steve for advice and to chat over things. And I have yet to get a bad answer from Steve Crispino. He's doing a great job.
Not a bad three-point shooter either.
He could shoot
In
three-pointers?
basketball, yeah.
That's good to hear. I'm going to have to make sure.
He was an excellent three-point shooter.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
From a track guy to a track guy, javelin, how far did you throw it?
I did okay. I threw it, I think I threw it about 142 feet.
Okay.
When you and I grew up, the javelins were a lot different than the javelins they had
Right.
now with these
Yeah.
various alloys
Yeah.
and all of that.
Now,
But-
you were before John Forcade, right?
Yeah, well, John Forcade was a couple of years before me. John graduated.
Was he before you?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then his brother Keith,
Right.
and then Terry, the youngest brother, graduated with me.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Some good athletes.
Yes, they were. All three of them were very good.
Yeah. Those Catholic leagues, two nephews and a brother-in-law that went to Jesuit. And of course, they won so many state championships in baseball. But I never forgot a cheer I heard when Rummel beat my nephew's team one time.
Uh-oh.
And they started taunting them a little bit, which Catholic leagues are pretty competitive. And my nephew's group got out the dugout and started chanting back at him, "That's all right, that's okay. Y'all gonna work for us one day."
Oh, is that what they said?
That was innovative.
Jesuit versus
Rummel.
Rummel?
Yeah. So We teach God, but it is competitive,
It
isn't
is
it?
very competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It'll be tough to be in that league.
it was tough. And before coming here as superintendent, I was the associate superintendent for secondary schools in the Archdiocese of New Orleans. So I had Jesuit, Brother Martin, Shaw, Rummel, Holy Cross, De La Salle, St. Charles Catholic, Pope John Paul, St. Scholastica, Hannon, St. Paul's. Yeah,
That's a large array.
I had 23 schools. I don't want to say it was difficult to keep the peace. What was difficult was keeping the fierce desire for everyone to be successful in a manageable way.
Right.
You know, because everyone firmly believes in the mission of each school, and it was very, very competitive.
There's no doubt. And I guess as a superintendent or as a principal, the worst thing you could do is put the fire out because you want them that fire. You just got to keep it. It's almost like a wild stallion. You just
Right.
got to
Keep it controlled.
corralled, yeah.
Yes. As a principal, and I would sit in the stands, and you know, if I would, you know, see a young man throw his helmet at a football game, you know, I wouldn't go say anything to the coach at the game, but I'd always mention it on Monday, like, hey, who's talking to that young man? You or me? Because, you know, that's not exactly the, we need
It's an image thing, too.
We want to teach a little bit better than that. Somebody strikes out and makes a scene in softball or baseball. No. We have to look at this as a teachable moment. You know, we want to teach character. Well, let's teach it through sports. So yes, seen many of those.
And I've seen many coaches get very fiery and some use very selective words along the way. That's been corralled over the years too. You don't see as many coaches going off like they used to.
When I was a principal of a Catholic high school, we had a coaches meeting at the beginning of every year. We had an athletic handbook that outlined all of that. And it was all based on the Salesian charism. And if I was principal at Vanderbilt or E.D. White, it would be based on the brothers' charism of how we need to be modeling for the children, period. And so we only want to model the behaviors that we want the children, you know, to do. So we want to model competitiveness. Absolutely. We want to model hard work. We want to model passion. But do we want to model bad language? Do we want to model altercations and all these things that we see? I don't know about that. So we would always have those discussions.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
As we wind down the program, and I appreciate your time. I know you're a very busy person. What are your goals in the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux? We talked about a lot of things, but years down the road, when you're going and they're looking at what you've, the trail you've blazed, what would you want to see?
I think that the first thing that I would like to see is that we would grow our enrollment by making a Catholic education available to anyone who aspires to have one. That's number one. Because I really believe that we're putting a good product out there on the streets when they graduate. I really believe we're building disciples, we're building good character students and citizens, we're building people who vote, who are engaged in the community. We're building good employees as well as entrepreneurs. I am really in belief that we're doing that. So I would like to make sure that if there's someone who may have questions about the affordability or they don't, I want to make sure that if someone really and truly aspires to possess a Catholic education, that we lay out the pathways and avenues to make that happen. That's number one. Number two, I would like to see a program, and not only will I like to see it, we are going to see it, we're going to have a program to where we use, that we even have a greater use of data to inform our instructional practices. Now, we're doing it now, but I'd like to raise that up a notch. Instead of saying, well, you know, we think this has happened. No, this is happening because here are the numbers that point to it. So right now, we're putting these things in place right
And so
now.
that's a communication, I guess, between you and Ms. Byrne?
Me, Ms.
Whatever.
Byrne, and our school leaders.
Yeah, okay.
And then the last thing is, I would like to put into place, and I really would like to have this in place immediately. Immediately meaning next year. Right now, we're immersed in our Cognia review for reaccreditation, but beginning August 2023, a program where we're quantifying the instruction that we see in the classrooms according to what we hold dear. So what that would mean is we'll have to build an instrument that a group of folks, a group of professional educators, me, the associate superintendent, maybe some pastors or priests, some board members, maybe some teachers at the school, the principal, walking into classrooms 7 or 8 deep, all with the same instrument, and assigning values to what we see taking place in that learning environment, and then collecting all of this data to see where we are and how we can improve it. So those would be the 3 things that I would say when Mark Williams is gone, those 3 things are in place. Everybody who wants a Catholic education can get one. Data-informed instructional practices, data-informed teaching and learning environment practices. If we can get all of those in place really good, make a big difference in Houma, Raceland, Thibodaux, LaRose, and Morgan City. We will make a big difference.
As I close out the show, every time I ask somebody to give me one word that their peers would describe them, let's go back to Archbishop Shaw, your coaches, if we get your parents, if we could have got, people have gone, but could come back just for a little bit to say that one word that would describe Mark Williams. What would you hope the one word they would use to describe you would be?
Collaborative, making critical decisions and implementation decisions as a group. That's what I would like to hear them say.
First time in so many years that I've ever heard the word collaborative. Seems to fit you well.
I hope so.
I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate you coming to Houma. Of course, it's also, like I said, St. Mary, Terrebonne, Lafourche, those areas. And love to get you on again soon and tell me how your programs are working.
I can't wait to once we get the first round of data, Martin, I would love to come share it.
All right.
We're already seeing a little bit of it come in, and I'd love to share it with all of the viewers, you and everyone here.
All right. Dr. Williams.
Thank you so much for having me.
All
I
right.
appreciate
We
that.
appreciate it.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.